Akut. Woo. Good morning. We'll figure out this mic. Looks like everyone got really quiet all of a sudden. They're like, when are we starting? There we go. Good. All right, welcome. Welcome to the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission's first ever, I don't know if last ever, we'll see, but first ever Marine Planning Forum. Thank you for being here. My name is Janelle Kennedy. I'm the Executive Director for the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission. I live in Iqaluit. My office is in Qajaq, and I'm happy to say that I've gotten to spend a lot of time in Nunavut and visit all the Nunavik communities 3 years in a row now. So that's home for me. Good morning as well to all those watching online and listening on the radio. We do have TNI radio broadcasting this in Inuktitut across Nunavik. There's a camera over there. It's on all of you, so you can't hide. So to get us started, I'd like to have Joanny Qajaq, he's one of our board commissioners, and Evie Mark, who's going to light the qulliq. They're going to start with an opening prayer and lighting of the qulliq. So I'm going to let them get started. And do I turn this off?
There, it's on now.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome, you folks, for this Marine Planning Forum. At this time, we're going to open with a prayer. So it's okay to be sitting down. Let us all pray together. Father God, we pray to you for this forum. We need your help through Jesus Christ our Lord. We pray that our meeting, we give it to you, that we pray for the operators, those in operation, and to our interpreters. Give them guidance so that the meeting will go well. So this is a prayer through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you. I'm going to light up the traditional lamp. If it were not for the lamps, the Inuit would not have been in heat. They needed it so the lamp was used as a light and to cook and to dry clothing. It was for heating, and they used the oksuk oil. Beluga blubber was the best. That's what I've heard. I asked Joanny to tell a short story for me. Although my mother was born in an igloo, but me, I was where there's hydroelectricity. That's where I was born. So I was born in wood house, but I asked Johnny to come up since he experienced that. So and there was peace and quiet during his time. So I wanted to share a short story. Please feel welcome, Johnny. So this lamp that Evie is lighting, I remember in a hut in the morning when the lamp was not on, it would get cold, and our kamek sealskin boots, they would be frozen on the floor. So this qulliq, when they're lit, it felt warmer. It may not have been hot, but I remember vividly that in the evening, when after it reminded me of the lights down there. So the light of the traditional qulliq, so it was the only one. There was no flashlight. It was the only light available. For the hunters who went, they used to bring the lamp to make tea, to make hot water, and also to cook food. They brought it with them, so it was very useful, the qulliq, at that time when we were in our traditional camps, that one day we're going to be Halunak, or the white man, since we had light in the house. So the traditional lamp was very useful in many ways, and to dry cooking and to cook food, and the mittens and the kamiks, I have seen it myself. So Inuit, it was very useful for us Inuit. So I'm reminded of how it was. So it was different back then. It took time to light up the lamp, but we're living in a different environment or different phase. And the manik is used, the wick in the, I remember going to an island, use an axe near the lake. So it will be hanging for quite some time to dry up. So the hammock, or traditional hut, and there's also plants, and they would set aside with manik. It was seputi.
So yes, wick is from. Did you also use rabbit dung? No, it was just Arctic cotton and moss that was used to make the wick. Did you also call it? Was there also other terms used to describe the qulliq? When there's a draft or a wind, then it would make a soot caused by the wind or a draft. And when it's properly lit, beluga blubber was the best to make it. It made it brightest. You also used seal fat, seal blubber, but there was more odor from the seal blubber. So the beluga blubber has the purest light So we sometimes were short of blubber, so we can use all kinds of blubber or fat to make oil. Nowadays, we use canola oil or vegetable oil. That's more used nowadays. Any kind of oil can be used to light the qulliq. Was your mother, did she have her own qulliq? Were you not allowed to touch the qulliq? When our mother was tending to the qulliq, she would make it so bright. Sometimes we would tend to the qulliq ourselves too in the morning. So I remember my boots, sealskin boots, were frozen. Used to be frozen. Then when I put them on, then they start to warm up. We were so patient that back in the day. That was the Inuit way of life. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm grateful that Johnny joined me on this manik, the week. We need to revitalize our culture, because when we're talking about wildlife, we hear that we need to preserve for our future generations, and that we need to be good stewards of the land. So, we need to leave some resources to our future generations. So I like to revitalize our culture. The wick was harvested in Ivudivik. There was a lot of wick, dried Arctic cotton and moss. That was so they made it so. They were so lovely when they were working on the qulliq, when they were practicing to light the qulliq. So we need to start revitalizing all aspects of our lives. So I am grateful that I was invited to light the qulliq, and I'm grateful for Johnny. So please give him an applause.
Thank you so much, Evie, and thank you, Joannie. Okay, buckle up. I got like 3 pages of notes here, so I'm going to be talking for a while. There's been a lot of time and effort put into preparing this event, and I would like to thank all those who have helped make this event possible, but I'm not going to take the time to name them all. I would like to give just a little special shout out to my 16-year-old son, Thorin. He's gone to all of the visits around Nunavik, helping set up and take down, and he's been a lot of the muscle to help us get set up here, and he'll probably be some of my muscle helping us take it all down too. So just wanted to give him a little nod. And you know what, most of you have probably already been on calls with Susan and I. We're a little bit relentless. We will offer you PowerPoint presentations and explanations and Teams calls and follow-up team calls and follow-up team notes. So I hope that in the time leading up to this forum that you feel prepared to be here. The funding for the event is provided by the Government of Canada through CERNAC. This event will advance marine planning in the Nunavik Marine Region, and I'm very grateful to have you all here today. So together with, where's Tunu? Where's my guy? So with Tunu Napartuk, He's our facilitator. Tunu, would you come introduce yourself quickly? I don't know who's the sidekick yet. You guys can take a vote.
Na kome maralok ino hatika na kome yoni ikitloa kime.
Thank you, Johnny. He's from Kimeru, now living in Iqaluit. He was being appointed by the government of Nunavik to be in the planning commissions. And Evie Mark for lighting the qulliq. She's also an interpreter. We now nowadays open with a prayer. So it's just a reminder. We've been for many generations have been alive. Inuit are so resourceful and great at what they do. So yeah, we've started revitalizing the use of the qulliq as Inuit in Canada, in Greenland, and all over Inuit Nunat. We are also taking back the power to decide for ourselves. I'm excited for the next 3 days to be in this forum with all of you. We're working with Janelle. I'll be facilitating this forum. I also have other roles. I work at Makivvik as a negotiator and to gain self-government. We are here for marine planning. We will be. This is the main focus of our forum in the next 3 days. I'm grateful. I'm proud to be invited here. I can recognize some faces here, and I'm sure I'll get to know them better in the next few days. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm proud. Please feel welcome. There'll be questions, and we need to think about for planning purposes. So I expect that in the 3 days that our questions and solutions will come about in the next 3 days. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd also like to introduce our board. So I'm just going to ask them to stand up as I call your name. With the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission Board, our chairperson is Billy Dan May. I always get around those. We have our vice chair, which is Lauren McNeese, and he's nominated by the Government of Canada. Joanne Qajaq, which you met this morning. Lucas E. Kudlu, one of our Makivvik nominees. If you need a coffee, he's right there. Sarah Lisa Kasujilak, another nominee from Makivvik. Her role today is that if I forget something, she's going to yell at me. And she's going to let me know. Or if I'm talking too much, you're going to hear Sarah Lisa say, "Time ma." I would also like to introduce the NMRPC staff and support. Susan Dean, our senior marine planner. We have Charity Justrabo here at the back, one of our consultants that works with us. Charity has a yellow and red card, so for presenters, if you see the yellow card, hurry up. If you see the red card, stop talking. Anyway, she'll be keeping you on track. Rebecca Jepson, also one of our consultants that's helped us with this event. Qajaq Robinson, one of our keynotes this morning. She's our primary legal counsel. We have Sean Dalton. She's in the back left corner here. She's a graphic recorder, and I could probably let her explain what she does better because I can draw stick people and that's where it ends. But she's going to capture through art and words and on paper the whole 3-day forum, and she's going to do that graphically. So. The audiovisual team over here, starting with our interpreters in the booth. We also have this as an online event, so there is a camera here for the room. Both these mics here are linked up, so anyone watching online will be able to see you when you ask a question. Our interpreters are Evie Mark, Yamaha Ezekiel. Everyone in this room who knows him will know that joke. Palaya. Did I get it right? Haha, finally. Jeez. Dennis Nakulak. For the headsets, I think you all have one, but you can get them from over here in the right corner. English is channel 3 and Inuktitut is channel 5. If you hadn't figured that out by now, you missed quite a bit of the morning already. So, all right. And so my AV guys, I'd like to know where the PowerPoint is. Do I just press the button? Okay, so I'm going to go over the agenda. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda in your participant package if you haven't looked already. So this forum kicks off the marine planning process in the Nunavik Marine Region. It is understood and expected that many will be unfamiliar with our work with the Nunavik Marine Region or even the concept of marine planning, but that's why we're all here. We will aim to end our days by about 4:30 p.m., but please bear with us. Even today, we got a late start. We may go a little bit past that. So I'm going to go through the agenda and point out some key elements here. On day 1, we've called this Common Ground. So this day is all about providing the big picture around why we are here and introducing key organizations related to marine planning. We have a Keynote, which is going to start. It's a video recording of Johnny Peters, followed by Qajaq Robinson, and she will give him a formal introduction. We're going to share information on the roles and responsibilities of the institutions of public government, the signatories to the Nunavik Inuit Land Claims Agreement, and other key organizations such as the Wildlife Board, Atinuvik, Avatak, and the Nguvigak. We will also provide Nunavik community representatives who were invited and joining us here opportunities to speak. And we will end the day by providing a brief introduction to marine planning in the Nunavik Marine Region and to some of our work and our steps ahead. For day 2, this is all about marine use planning. So day 2, we're going to dig in about what is marine planning so that you understand what it is and why you are an important part of this process. Both for those here in the room and those listening online and to the radio, we are going to be monitoring questions and everything at the table, so people online will be able to engage with the room as well. Our day 2 keynote speaker is Dallas Smith, who is instrumental in the marine planning process in British Columbia. He has 30 years of experience. He's going to be sharing with us tomorrow. And we will end the day on day 2 with presentations by those with activities and those who can provide resources in the Nunavik Marine Region. On day 3, we've called this Looking Forward. So this is a day about looking to the future and informing the marine planning process. We need your engagement and input. We will then hear from a range of organizations, including Makivvik and the Health Board, as well as some work that we've been doing in communities over the years that have provided some guidance on what the future of the Nunavik Marine Region looks like. Then we're going to be doing some activities on day 3. This is where we turn it over to you, all of our invited guests, to participate in the process to see what you envision for that future. So there's 3 main objectives to, oops. I guess that's not the back button. Anyway, we can keep going. I can only go forward, so.
Oh, press the red button.
Yeah, okay. I did, but that's okay. We're just going to keep going. So there's 3 main objectives. We're going to kick off the marine planning process. We're going to facilitate networking and information sharing. And we're going to obtain information and resources to help guide our marine use planning process. So a few, let's call this housekeeping. We're going to do some housekeeping things. First, I mentioned about the 2 mics at the front of the room. In your participant packages, you will find 2 brightly colored pieces of paper. Those are for writing feedback on there for us. And there's a blue sparkly bin at the back of the room that you can place your feedback forms in at any time during the forum. It's really important to note that we are not asking participants here to make any final decisions or provide official direction on behalf of your organizations here at this meeting. We will seek your input so that we can report back to you on what we heard and get good guidance on moving forward. But this is not your final say. This is not the final step in the marine planning process. There will be lots of opportunities along the way to continue with input and continue providing that guidance. This flip chart over here, we're calling it the parking lot. We know that some issues might come up during the forum that maybe we don't have time for, or maybe aren't exactly relevant to the Planning Commission or what we're doing here, and we're going to make sure we still capture those, and we'll put those on the parking lot. Tuna will help me with that. In the Vickers room, you've probably all had a chance to kind of have a mingle around. We have stakeholder sheets in the rooms across the hall. You are welcome to draw your name, write your name where you find your organization, and you can also add organizations there, or maybe we've misspelled something. But those are all the representatives and organizations that we would consider planning partners, people that may have some involvement in the planning process over the coming years. We also have a bunch of maps in the other room. The maps laying flat on the tables with the names of the islands, and you'll see little animals on them. Those were maps that we used in our workshops last year, and we encourage you to draw on them, share notes, sticky notes, ideas. There's colored pencils over there, so if anyone's got a hankering for a crafternoon, you can go next door and start drawing on the maps. We're also sharing in the room next door on the left-hand side of that room are all the use and occupancy study maps that we collected through data in 2011 to 2016, and it was called the Use and Occupancy Mapping Study. We'll talk more about that during the forum, but I just want to point out that we're sharing the maps over there. And we have some booths from the Government of Nunavut next door, Transport Canada, the Nunavik Marine Region Impact Review Board, and also from the Planning Commission. Where was I? Okay, so, and throughout the forum, Tunu is going to be asking some trivia questions. So we'll be testing your knowledge of the Nunavik Marine Region. The first person to stand and give the correct answer can pick from our little prize pile at the very back of the room there. We also have a separate boardroom. So if anyone needs to book a side meeting, or you just need a private space for working, or you'd like to, community members would like to get together to discuss something, you can go see Becky and Charity at the back of the room, and they'll be able to provide you with access to that space. I'm going to quickly go over the participant packages. So in there you have the agenda. We've shared a calendar. There's a walking map for places close around the hotel, places to eat, banks, that sort of thing. There's one of our notebooks, the 2 brightly colored pieces of paper I mentioned for the feedback. If you need more pieces of paper, you get lots of feedback. We have lots of extra. There's a toolkit in there, and I would also like to thank Makivvik, who provided samples of their Inuit tea for everyone. So you'll find a sachet of tea and a brochure about that tea in everybody's package. I'd like to point out your name tags are actually seed paper. You can grow chives with your name tag, and your lanyards are made of bamboo, so you can throw them in the compost. We do have little plant pots available, so if anyone wants to grow their chives for some omelets in the future, you can get that out at the welcome table. If there's anything you feel you won't use from your participant package at any time during the forum, you can leave it at the welcome table, and we'll make sure it goes to good use. Another important item that's on the tables is it's called the pre-forum survey. You might see it there in the piles in the middle somewhere. If you find the candy dish, you'll probably find the survey on your table. So what we're doing is we want to measure people's what they know now, and at the end of the forum, maybe how they've advanced their learning and knowledge of the marine planning process, and also to be able to share additional feedback with us. So we're going to take just a few minutes while we transition to our presenters and so on. If everyone could please do the pre-survey now, and then we'll go around and pick them all up. And you're going to want to do the survey because the survey goes into that. It's actually a pop-up laundry basket, but that was the best thing we could find at the dollar store for this the other day. And you can pop it in that basket back there, and that's going to be a draw. So we're going to be doing 3 prize draws at the end of the forum, and your surveys act as the draw ballot. So you've been enticed to do your survey. So we'll take some time to do that now, and then we're going to transition to speakers. And I'm not really sure what time it is. I forgot my watch. I don't know if we're on time or overtime or if we're doing okay. I would also maybe encourage some people who have their back to the screens right now. I see some empty seats. You might want to move yourself if you can't see properly. We know this is the GN table, so this is your official breakup. So it's 10 to 10. Okay, so we'll do the surveys, and then we have a coffee break, I believe, at 10:15. So we'll get started with Qajaq. We'll take just take 2 minutes to do the survey, and then we'll come around and pick them up. Becky and Charity can start doing that.
So yes, it's important that you fill out the survey. The Planning Commission is funded by the government of Canada. So they like to know statements, financial statements. They would like to see reports. So this will help prepare the report to the government of Canada. So there's a survey to fill out before we begin our forum regarding marine planning. And after our meeting in the next 3 days, when our meeting comes to an end, there'll be another evaluation form because we need to provide financial statements to our funders. So we're proud that you can fill this out. If you can write your name on the survey, that'd be great as well. We'll gather them, or Charity will come around and gather the surveys, completed surveys. So there'll be a draw with some prizes. So if you can write your name on the survey form, it's mostly for the draw, for the prizes, and there'll be some winners. Okay.
There's a headset here. I know you don't need it, but if anyone needs it, there's a headset there. It's just, yeah, you can have one if you want. It's just empty.
Did you say break at 10:15? But okay, very good. And you're going to introduce the video, eh? Good. continue. Kayo silaw na na kung may katataksalang nin.
Thank you for filling out the survey. They'll be very helpful. Yes, this is to help. And I will do a presentation.
Thank you. Na kung may makalok, I need a red card here.
Pak to me, sikut sa mi pisi piga kakho mazwa na lataw na siyang nakatata na leo. Let's if we can continue with our forum. If we can, let's welcome Qajaq Robinson to the podium.
Lakut. Nice to see some familiar faces. I've been asked to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, Johnny Peters. It feels, everybody knows Johnny, so he's an icon, and I feel a little silly doing so, but for some, his role and his impact in Nunavik might not be fully understood. So I'm going to do my best to provide an introduction, and then we are going to hear his keynote. It's pre-recorded. Johnny's retired now and takes a lot to travel and needs his rest as well. So really grateful that he was willing to be pre-recorded to provide some words on his role in the negotiation of the Nunavik Inuit Land Claim Agreement, as well as, the objectives of the agreement, and a recollection of his time in that role. Johnny is the former vice president of Makivvik. He's widely respected within Nunavik, but also I think nationally he should be recognized for the incredible work he did as a negotiator and as a steadfast defender of Inuit rights. Following the negotiation and the settlement of the 1975 James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, Johnny recognized that there was a critical gap. Inuit life doesn't end at the shoreline. The offshore islands and surrounding waters are central to Inuit culture and life. This remained unresolved in terms of Inuit rights and the protection of this area. For more than 2 decades, he led negotiations for Makivvik across the table from Canada to close this gap. His leadership was defined by persistence, cultural integrity, and collaboration. He listened deeply to Nunavimmiut and the hunters, and he refused parcel or rushed solutions. Further, he insisted on the importance of governance, that Inuit be part of decision-making. This led to the enduring institutions that were set up under the NILCA, including the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission, Wildlife Board, and Impact Review Board. Through Johnny's work and the resolution of the Nunavik Inuit Land Claim Agreement, the islands and the marine areas of Nunavik, which include Hudson's Bay, Hudson Strait, and Ungava, were secured with Inuit ownership and management in perpetuity. Johnny's legacy is a treaty and a governance system that continues to shape Nunavik and Canada and the stewardship of the Nunavik Marine Region up to today and into the future. Thank you again, Johnny, for sharing your words with us, and I will pause now, and if you could play the video. Nagomik.
Yani bitaw yung tamani utami mo yung Makivvik operation.
Yanni Peter. There's back in when Charlie Watt was the president, I was asked then if I could start the work regarding the island planning to join the negotiations for the islands, securing the islands. But I had to look for 2 other people to join me, one from Hudson Strait and one from the Hudson Coast. I started working with those 2 people from the start. We used my delegation from Makivvik to plan first. There was a lot of planning before really starting. Also, usually before a big negotiation, there's something called agreement principle. We worked on that for a whole year. So then, after working on the principal agreement for a year, after working on that, we then worked on the final agreement. But we worked on this agreement for 13 years. A lot of work had to be done with the government of Quebec and Inuit of Quebec. It was the first time working together on regarding islands began, and then the federal government began to offer 20% of the islands to the Nunavik Inuit, all of the islands are along the edge of Quebec. That are on the maps. Those were that we were working on. The government first told us that they could give us only 20% of those islands. I couldn't agree on this. Since I was delegated by Makivvik Corporation to negotiate, if they offered something I did not agree to, we really had to steer it another direction. Instead, offering to take 80%, we wanted they also said you will need to you'll have just 6 inches of we didn't also agree to that if we are going to get 80% of the islands until it reaches the depths where it ends, that's what we wanted. That's the only way I will be able to agree to it. That's how I promised to myself. I had to be firm with not agreeing to this, although we were offered only 6 inches. I only wanted no limits. I had to be rigid about what we were trying to get in regards to islands. The government offered to let go of it all. I also did not want to agree with letting it go with reasons. When the Northern Quebec Inuit Association were negotiating with the provincial and federal government during the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement, they had to surrender because it was said that those are the laws. When that happened, Inuit in Northern Quebec started to divide. Some did not want to follow anymore, and the others wanted to stay with the NQIA. This brought a lot of disagreements. The relationships of Inuit were affected. They were happy. They weren't happy no more. And one group started siding with a group while the other side sided with others. As a result of surrendering, I did not want that to happen again to the Inuit of Nunavik. I wanted to agree. I never wanted to agree to surrendering, even if the government was pushing it, saying it's the only way to go. That's the law. It was the law that you made without Inuit, so I'm not going to recognize it as a law. It doesn't not exist, the law. Then they would say you have to surrender first before you start agreements, even if I did not believe in that. Inuit were part of the not a part of the negotiations agreement. I mean, when this law was made, surrendering before entering into agreements with Canada, this is how it will be done. Inuit needed. However, since this was not, you decided on your own without telling Inuit, consulting Inuit. So when we're not part of the agreement, I am not going to use that. I will not surrender. The negotiations will have to continue. Although they did not agree for a while. Although it took them 3 years of disagreement, the agreement we were working on was able to move ahead afterwards. The agreement in principle worked. using that, since we advanced in that, the final agreement, we had to put details into it. We did not want our work to be done for nothing. Although they did not want to agree to it, although they really wanted us to temporarily surrender without even going through with it, Makivvik Corporation and the government were able to sign the agreement. As an individual, I cannot tell you what to do. However, since Makivvik Corporation represents constituents, and the Nunavik Inuit also has beneficiaries from the Inuit of Northern Quebec, they own the islands now. They are held by Makivvik. Since Makivvik holds the islands, representing the Inuit of Northern Quebec, if Makivvik wants to something else, if they want to revise or change something, I think it's more in their place to do that. I don't feel that it's my place to say what should be done. If I was delegated, if I was able to do so, I could probably join. However, I don't want to be the only one demanding it to get it done, because Makivvik has the authority to say that since they are responsible for the islands, since Makivvik is holding 80% of the islands, Nunavik truly owns. Only 20% is owned by the government. Those that contain birds, for example, Apatuk Island and 3 types of puffins, and Kimirot, I mean, what is called, I'm getting lost here. Ivuzivik, the islands of Ivuzivik. Also, there is no one island in the south. And in the area Puvirnituk, it's called Ivilik, and including one island there, the Ottawa Islands, putting all of those islands together make 20% of the government-owned islands. The rest belong to Nunavik through Makivvik. I am going to add to this, especially with youth keeping. It's not clear that it will be understood by Inuit. Before there was the Northern Quebec Inuit Association, there was really nothing that brought Inuit together to go through against the government. As people of Nunavik, we're placed in difficult situations by the government's doings. As we are here in Quebec, we are the jurisdiction of the Quebec government as we are in Northern Quebec. Since the government of Quebec has no legal power, since there is no legal power over the procurement of islands and saltwater wildlife, marine wildlife, this made it seem like it cannot go anywhere since the Northern Quebec cannot. And the federal government was made responsible for these islands and the saltwater wildlife. The government of Yellowknife was responsible for the people of Nunavut. They were well taken care of because they're in Nunavut by the government of Yellowknife and NWT, whereas the Inuit of Quebec, often the governments, long before they really cared for us, for the longest we ever known, our ancestors, we've always used animals, marine mammals, animals as food and clothes. It's been our way of life to this day. We weren't given power by the government since we are not under the NWT government, because we are under Quebec government. We were put into very difficult situations. Wildlife had laws. Sea animals where it was beluga, polar bears, and mammals. If they were mammals in saltwater, as the people of Nunavut, due to the fact that we were under the Quebec government and the Quebec government had no legal jurisdiction, because that we were put in very difficult situations. Better know that because there are more tools in Nunavik when it comes to dealing with the government. Back in when there wasn't much work done, the Inuit Northern Quebec were put in a very difficult situations, and there were laws that stopped them from having legal power because they weren't under the Nunavut government. Due to all of that, it was very difficult. The Quebec government was supposed to, but it had no jurisdiction over this. Now it's improved a lot because organizations were formed through agreements, and they are now working in in place. Now there's more tools, so it seems to be a lot better now. We are working hard for the saltwater animals with our fellow Inuit from Nunavik. If we had to work on developing for animals like beluga, walrus, polar bears, or anything, we started working very well together. When the Nunavik Wildlife Management Board was established, at the end, new organizations were formed. Since there were more varieties, I don't participate in much anymore because of my because I retired. Organizations ran. Sorry, that makes me very grateful. I have to mention this, even if it's known to the people of Nunavik. We have a wildlife organization called Anguvigait. All of the communities in Nunavik, northern Quebec have a community called Anguvigapit, and there was it's known as the main Anguvigak. They have an office in Tasiusaq that worked within the communities of Anguvigak. They also work on wildlife. Back then, the government was called the Marine Regional Wildlife Board. Since the Organization for Saltwater Wildlife was being established, the government tried to say it's going to be better for the Anguvigite are removed since it will be our wildlife management. It will focus more on animals. When they said that, no, they can also work on with non-saltwater animals. They can also be working on terrestrial animals. Also, we can also add to the agreement how Anguvigay could play a role for saltwater mammals that they could make recommendations, that could say what to do. We could make that happen. We had that added into the agreement for island procurement, so it's included in there. Due to that, Anguvigay is very involved over wildlife. Back then, before all of that, before Nunavik had a plan for its islands, there was really nothing about this. There was nothing on it. Due to that, they had to come to fruition during the negotiations of the islands. The Planning Commission, they would plan for the needs. If anything starts to happen, anything, perhaps if anyone wanted to work on a big project, the Planning Commission, those planners, since they would need to be prepared for anyone plans on their purpose for being animals and birds and sea mammals, walruses, belugas, and any type of animal, in hopes of, will those be affected? Are they going to be affected? Will they be touched? Will they be disrupted? Since these have to be determined, we knew that the Plan Commission had to be in place. Right now, the new committees have been put in place. Those will start making steps since there are things in place now. Yes, it's true. Those islands in Nunavik, we now own 80% of them through Makivvik Corporation. We accomplished this when we were negotiating. Those are the islands that are now owned by Inuit through Makivvik. The Planning Commission, now that there are committees, if anyone is trying to plan on doing something, it's clear that they will have more power because it exists now. It doesn't exist. It didn't exist before. Back before, the government would tell us we don't have anything, and the people of Nunavik would always use the water, island, sea animals because it's always been there, and it's always been this way. There was never really that were never really recognized by the government, but now it's now that we have agreements, if Inuit want to, thank you so much. I don't have any questions, and that's all for my questions. Yes, thank you.
It's a much longer interview with Johnny Peters, and we tried to get it down, and I just couldn't edit any more out. We had to share the full 15 minutes. I wanted you to hear everything he had to say. And I'd like to thank Billy Dan, Malaya Chapman, Derek Taguna, Qajaq Robinson, and a friend of mine, Milena Rachiva, and Qajaq, for making the interview possible with Johnny. And he did the first giant chunk of that interview on Christmas Eve with us. So I think he's just as passionate and dedicated to what we've all been able to make come to fruition here today as he was 30 years ago. And just, I'd like to give a nod to his son too, George Peters, who's here. So thank you for coming. Yeah. Johnny really is a powerhouse. And I've heard about his mic drops and everything too, so I hear he's quite a character. I'd like to meet him in person one day. So I think everyone's ready for a coffee and cookie break, maybe some fresh air. So we're going to take 15 minutes, and we're a little bit behind schedule, but we'll try to pick up some speed after the coffee break. Okay? Nakarmi.
What he means to me, Jolene.
Welcome back, everybody. So I get to, I guess, provide a bit of the background, a bit of the big picture, in hopes to try and frame and situate us as we start the week from sort of the legal and political and historical context around the land claim, as well as land use and marine planning. Before I get into the legal stuff, this is what I do, so I'll try to make it less boring. Rather than a PowerPoint, I put together a photo slideshow. I want to thank the Planning Commission, Janelle and Susan, for providing me access to their photos, many of which they've taken over the years and as they visited communities and had workshops. Also want to thank Makivvik, was able to provide a few photos from the negotiation times. So you'll see pictures of the negotiation team, as well as Johnny, one where he's on community radio, pre-ratification of the agreement, presenting to Nunavik about the land claim and its objectives. We also got some photos from the Nunavik Marine Wildlife Board. They held a photo competition a few years back. I thought it would be best to share these photos because it shows the people in the land for which this work is so important. And I do my work largely living in the books with this, and really this is about the land, the people who've made Nunavik home since time immemorial, and the work of nation building. Canada has a lot of work to do when it comes to nation building and reconciliation, and that is something within that framework. This is the work that we're doing, and we all play a small part in that. I thought these photos were not going to go so fast, so hopefully it can just keep looping. But so that's where the photos came from, and I want to thank all those who've provided them. As Johnny mentioned, prior to the negotiation and the completion of the Nunavik Inuit Land Claim Agreement, Nunavik Inuit were in a very difficult situation. The James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement resolved Indigenous rights claims, Inuit right claims, and questions around certainty over land and rights and governance up into the shore. But offshore, there was a lot of uncertainty for Nunavik Inuit. I think it might have been Johnny that told me once about how you could stand on the shores of Nunavik and yes, you're Inuk and this is your territory, but when you stepped off the shore and you were in the offshore, your rights as an Inuk were no longer clear. Your way of life was no longer protected. And this was significant unfinished business, particularly for Inuit, who are coastal people whose diets and way of life depend heavily on the animals and marine animals. But these areas that were so important to Nunavik Inuit, the offshore, wasn't addressed in the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, so Inuit faced a lot of uncertainty. Pre-NILCA, there was no clarity on land and resource rights for Nunavik Inuit. Ownership over lands wasn't clear. Harvesting rights weren't clear. Particularly, though, it wasn't clear how decision-making was to be done in the offshore and in the islands. And it was often that Inuit were excluded from decision-making and participation in those processes. When it came to land use planning, there was no clarity. There was no clear regional land use planning framework for the offshore. So when decisions were being made, it was usually on a case-by-case, project-by-project basis. And again, Inuit participation in that decision-making was unclear and uncertain. That was the reason for and why for Makivvik and Nunavik Inuit, and as Johnny mentioned, the negotiation of the NILCA and its ratification and coming into force was so important. I want to speak a little bit about why it's important for these rights to be recognized and these processes to be recognized in treaty. The Nunavik Inuit Land Claim Agreement is a treaty as protected under Section 35 of the Constitution Act. This means that this is that the NILCA and its content and its institutions can't be unilaterally changed, and it can't be ignored by governments. It prevails over other pieces of legislation and policy, whether it's federal or territorial or provincial, when there is inconsistency. Therefore, any infringement on the rights and the institutions established under the treaty must meet a very, very high threshold to be okay. Treaty is also important because it ensures that the decision-making authority and decision-making of governments, that the people are not subject to political change, right? If it's just a piece of legislation or if it's just a piece of policy that the government's going to work with Inuit, you get a new government, policy and legislation can change, but treaty can't. So having Inuit rights in the Nunavik Marine region recognized through treaty protected Inuit rights from short-term political priorities, changes of ministers, shifts in economic and geopolitical pressures. The NILCA and treaty also creates enforceable governance that can't be ignored by governments, and governments are required to do their jobs and to engage in their authority in accordance with the land claim. So that is why it was so important, not just to have governments agree in the moment, yeah, we'll respect your rights at this point in time, but to actually recognize and enshrine those rights and those institutions in a treaty. So the Nunavik Inuit Land Claim Agreement was ratified. That means that Nunavik Inuit voted on it in October of 2006, and it passed with a 78% vote in favor. The final agreement was signed in December of 2006 in Qajaq, Makivvik, the government of Nunavut, and the government of Canada being the signatories. It came into force, legal force, in 2008 when the government of Canada passed the Nunavik Inuit Land Claim Agreement. Accompanying the Nunavik Land Claim Agreement is the Nunavik Land Claim Agreement Implementation Plan, which is a contract between the Government of Canada, Government of Nunavut, and Makivvik, and it includes the funding and plans on how the NILCA will be implemented. When we start talking about land use planning, the key articles to think about within the NILCA are Article 6, as well as parts of Article 7. As mentioned, the NILCA established an important governance framework. And a fancy way of, governance framework is a fancy way of saying how decisions are going to be made. And through the NILCA, 3 institutions of public government were established: the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission, the Nunavik Marine Region Impact Review Board, and the Nunavik Marine Region Wildlife Board. The Wildlife Board is responsible for wildlife, and Tommy and Mark are here and they'll speak more about that. The Impact Review Board is responsible for project screenings and reviews. And I believe Barry is here and will be speaking to that. And the Planning Commission, who is the host of this event, is responsible for the facilitation and development of the Marine Use Plan. These institutions of public government are independent from Makivvik and independent from government, whether Government of Canada or Government of Nunavut, and they serve all residents of Nunavik as well as Canada. The Planning Commission is composed of equal parts government appointees and Makivvik nominated appointees. It is expected that at least half of the members of the Planning Commission live in Nunavik. And the number of members may vary, but it should always be equal parts government appointees and equal parts Makivvik nominated appointees. Makivvik nominates from various regions to make sure there's regional representation on the commission, and each commissioner serves a 3-year term and has the ability to have their term extended following that. Although the Planning Commission is not an Inuit organization, Inuit rights are embedded structurally within the Planning Commission. And this is through the NILCA and there being clear and defined substantive rights for Nunavik Inuit, specifically rights in relation to land ownership. As you heard Johnny talk about, the islands within the Nunavik Marine region are 80% owned, surface, subsurface, by Nunavik Inuit and held through Makivvik. Nunavik Inuit's rights as well to harvesting and self-regulation as defined in the NILCA is also protected, and the Planning Commission as well as the other IPGs can't infringe on those either. Inuit rights are also embedded in the appointment process, as I mentioned. Often IPGs are called co-management bodies, right, where it kind of, the name speaks for itself, where it's management collaboratively, where government and Nunavik Inuit jointly are setting a table and appointing individuals to these institutions to do the work that they're required to do under the land claim. Inuit rights are also clearly defined and legally binding before the Planning Commission when it comes to participatory rights. Land use planning does not happen without Inuit and Inuit participating in the process. That's the picture of Johnny on the radio before the vote, talking about the NILCA and what was in it. I'm going to go on to the Planning Commission's mandate. As I said, their mandate as it relates to planning is found in Article 6 of the NILCA. In essence, it's the Planning Commission's responsibility to establish planning policies, objectives, priorities, regarding the conservation, development, management, and use of the lands and waters in the Nunavik Marine region. Further, they're responsible for the preparation of a land use plan or marine use plan that is to guide and direct resource use and development in the Nunavik Marine region. They're also responsible for monitoring the implementation of the Marine Use Plan and reporting that to the ministers responsible. Finally, the Planning Commission also plays a role when it comes to project reviews, and this is following the establishment of a land use plan or the approval of the Marine Use Plan. When projects when somebody or a proponent wants to do something, engage in a project in the Nunavik Marine region, the Planning Commission reviews those project proposals to make sure they conform with the land use plan. So that gives you a sense of what will be done and what use will be given to the marine use plan, land use plan once it's completed. I want to talk a little bit about the process of developing the land use plan. As you'll see in the material, the process involves the establishment of the strategy, which is an outline of the policies and principles and objectives. Then following that, and this is part of that process, following that is the development of the draft plans. Following the development of the draft plan, that draft plan will go to a public hearing where Nunavik Inuit, interested parties and governments will have an opportunity to review and provide their perspective on the draft. If you, we're quite far from that stage still, but if you, this is something that Nunavut Planning Commission engaged in not that long ago. I feel like if I say a couple of years ago, I'll realize, no, it was much longer, but it feels like it was last year. But they have taken their plans to hearing, and it's a really important process where all the work of developing the plan then gets to be tested. You get to look at it, you get to question it, you get to provide your comments and your perspective on it, and share with the commissioners your view. Following that hearing, the final draft land use plan is submitted to governments for their approval. If approved, then it's in force and it becomes a binding document that those that use the Nunavik Marine Region and govern over it are bound by. So this is why this process is so important, and why we're gathered here today to start looking at this for the Nunavik Marine Region. I want to talk a little bit about further about participation and the essential procedural requirements that are needed in the development of a plan. It's essential, this being the Nunavik Marine Region, that Nunavik Inuit participate throughout the development of the plan. And not just in at the end of the day, hey, do you like this, but throughout. The land claim is quite clear that this is a legal imperative, that this is necessary, that this is a must. Further, the process and the plans should include and meaningfully use Inuit knowledge as it looks to identify the values and the constraints and priorities that should be established in the plan. Further, the process must respect Inuit decision-making traditions, both oral and as established through contemporary Inuit governance systems. So this essentially, in the Nunavik context, means meaningful engagement with Makivvik as a partner, working with Anguvigate, working with the NVs to do this work. As mentioned, this work and the work of the Planning Commission is for all Nunavimut, all Canadians. So the process must also include participatory opportunities for others who are impacted. And transparency and legitimacy of the process is also incredibly important. There must be opportunities for public input, comment, community-level engagement, and clear documentation of how input has been received and considered and addressed. I'm going to go into, and I'm not going to go too long into this one because this is when it starts getting a little bit complicated, and if you really want to dive into it, we could do it over coffee, but not right now. There are portions of the Nunavik Marine Region and the Nunavik Inuit settlement area that overlap with adjacent treaties. There's areas of equal use and occupancy where Nunavik Inuit and Nunavut Inuit have, since time immemorial, used those lands and waters. Those areas have been recognized and affirmed as being equally and jointly the lands and territories of Nunavik Inuit and Nunavut Inuit. For those areas at this time, it's the Nunavut Planning Commission that makes planning decisions, with Nunavik Inuit having full participatory rights in their process. For the areas of overlap with the Iuichi, there is a chunk of territory that overlaps between the EU Marine Region and the Nunavik Marine Region. And within that area, the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission retains its authority, but in the joint zone, and there's maps in your binders, in the joint zone, the EU Marine Region Planning Commission and the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission must do their work jointly and equally within that territory. Further, there's this area called the Inuit Zone, near Umiuyak, where Cree also have rights and their treaty is enforced and in place. And within that area, when doing your planning work, the Planning Commission has an obligation to ensure effective voice and effective participation of EU Cree. This makes it, doing this work a little bit more complicated and requires some coordination and collaboration in different areas. I touched on that just a little bit because I think it's important to, but again, if you want to dive into it more and you have more questions for me, please feel free to ask at break or lunch. Finally, I wanted to share, so when it comes to land use planning, marine use planning, for a marine use plan to be compliant and consistent with the NILCA, it's essential that it, it respect the authority and comply with the authority given under Article 6 and the NILCA, that Inuit decision-making be embedded in the process, Inuit knowledge and be embedded in the process, not just consultation, but clearly part of it. That it is a product that has true legal effect, that the process of its development is transparent, documented, and predictable, that it coordinate properly with the areas of overlap, and that implementation is realistically supported. It can't just be a document that sits on the shelf. You have to look at this as something that, following its conclusion, institutions, governments are able to breathe life into this and it be operational. I was asked to touch a little bit on NILCA implementation. I've covered planning. I want to talk a little bit about NILCA implementation and the existence of the NILCA Implementation Committee. This is part of the land claim requires the establishment of the Implementation Committee, and its members include a representative from the Government of Nunavik, a representative of the Government of Canada, and a representative of Makivvik. The mandate of the Implementation Committee is to oversee, monitor, and report on the implementation of the NILCA and to make recommendations to Canada, Makivvik, and the Government of Nunavik for future planning periods following the initial 10 years of implementation. We're in our second implementation plan for the NILCA. The Implementation Committee is also a great space for addressing some of the systemic implementation issues before they escalate to disputes, and provides a forum for problem solving between parties when it comes to questions about how do you interpret, how do you apply, how do you work through the NILCA. This committee and the work of implementation is so important, and the work of implementing Article 6 and this land and marine use planning is so important because often implementation is harder than negotiation. You can come to a deal, but then how do you give it life? How do you operationally deliver on the promises made? I've been doing this work for a number of years, and sometimes an analogy that has been used that I've heard used by land claim negotiators, heads of organizations, is often, for some parties, the negotiation and the finalization of agreement is a marriage. For others, it's a divorce. That, oh, finally we've settled our dispute, right? We had questions over lands, resources, rights. The negotiations settled it like it's a divorce. But I think that the more appropriate way to look at it, and if we look at it through the lens of reconciliation and nation building, you have to look at it as a marriage. You have to look at it as this promise, and with that promise comes significant amounts of work and work to be done together. So those being my final words, welcome to the marriage. We have a lot of work to do to make this work, and in this space this week, our focus is going to be on land use planning and marine region planning. Makivvik.
Makivvik, thank you, Qajaq. And right here, we have a few moments, not a lot, but we do have. And then again, this can be a very complicated process, but that's the role of the Planning Commission, is to go through that complication process. But our job right now is we're spearheading the foundation of what kind of a use we want in Nunavik as Inuit. So with the help of Qajaq explaining the beginnings with NILCA, and of course the beautiful video by Johnny Peters, it kind of reminds us of where all this comes from. So NILCA, yes, but the planning, how the planning will go process. If you have questions for that, the microphones are there. And if there are no questions, which is okay, Qajaq is here, you're here for the rest of the week. You can have a nice coffee with her, maybe 3. Maybe 3 will be fine.
We might need 3.
But Makivvik, thank you, Qajaq. Qajaq Robinson, Legal Counsel of the Planning Commission. Her words were crucially important. What we're trying to do here in the next couple of days, all of this is really sets up of what we're expecting of the Inuit of Nunavik and the resources and the people that we work with. So thanks again, Qajaq. Janelle?
Thank you, Tunu. We're going to play a short 3-minute. Myself and the NMRPC team have seen this video pretty close to 200 times. We've played it for every single community in Nunavik. Lots of people have seen it, but we would like to share it. And after that, I'm going to hand it back over to Tunu, and then we have 2 presentations, one from Makivvik and one from the Government of Nunavut before lunch. So I think we're actually, unless I'm looking at the wrong time zone back there, I think we're pretty much on time. We made up some time. So we're going to play the video now. Just take a minute. It's only 3 minutes, just so you prepare yourself.
Welcome. My name is Billy Dan May. I'm the chairman of the Planning Commission. The short video, myself, and we're going to share about the Planning Commission, who we are and what we do.
And the governments of Canada and Nunavut in 2006 and came into effect in 2008. Nunavik inungita nunatago tirisimaranga ang hatiriunik su.
Land Claims Agreement confirms that the Nunavik Marine Region is important, and the Nunavik Inuit have rights and interests in the region. My name is Johnny Qulliq. I'm part of the board member with the Planning Commission, Nunavik Marine Region. We work, we do the work as board members. Lucas Kullu, Sarah Lisa Hasalo, Billy Dan May, and the Executive Director Janelle and the others.
Nunavik Inuit Land Claims Agreement, including Makivvik and the governments of Canada and Nunavut. The Commission is an institution of public government, which means that it is a joint management board through which Nunavik Inuit and government manage resources together for the benefit of all Nunavimil. The Commission reports to the governments of Canada and Nunavut.
The Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission's work is in the Nunavik Marine Region, which includes the saltwater and islands off of Nunavik. Nunavik Inuit own 75% of all the islands. Other Indigenous communities have overlapping and shared rights in the region. The Nunavik Marine Region contains areas of equal use and occupancy with the Inuit of Nunavut, overlapping interest areas with the Cree of Iyu Itchi, and Nunavik Inuit and Labrador Inuit overlap areas.
Nunavik inungita nunataaqutigisimajanga angihatigirutik malitsugu. Nunavik tariuhutinganik pakneiti kamarayahaqtut nuitsiriahaqnimik imakpiu atuqtauninganu paknasimautimik. Tana paknasimautik kamarayahalangayuk Nunavik tariungan. Hikittanginnik pitsayahutinginnilo umayuit ilautilluit. Pinasuaqturut nuitsilangatsuta imakpiu paknataurutingata hanuilingarasuarutitsanginni. Tana hanuilingarasuarutik ikayuk silangayuk nuitaunitsanganu imakpimik atuknimu paknasimautiu. Pinasuaqtalimaavut atutiwattut pinasuahatihaqsuta pakneitiuhatittinik ilautillurit Nunavik inungit. Nunavimmiut asingillu unammisuutihaqtut Nunavik tariuhutinganik uttuutirilurit pinasuaqtimaritsaye. Hawisaqti kavameit kavamaungituugaluallu pinasuaqviuyut pinasuahatitsayarivatsi kingumatsivurut ikayuqtoorumatsuta naluneqsigasuaqnikut sivullipautjooyarialinnik. Saangajooyarialinnik pivitsahaqviurunnatunillu saangajoorunnarayaqtunik Nunavik tariuhutingata paknatoorutinganu.
Our team is here to answer your questions and hear your thoughts. The planning process is in the early stages. We look forward to keeping in touch with you and sharing what we learn. Thank you for being part of the process.
Nakumik, tukisiliu mi valia hatta hugul, imakpilagan hikattalagan taking.
Concerning the NILCA agreement, starting from Johnny Peters' story, and also Qajaq, exactly the timeline, and also the Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission. They have a big responsibility, the Planning Commission, and I'm very proud of them because they're going to start giving to you so that you can, they're guiders so that you can be the planners. And Sarah, Lisa, Jorn, Ioani, Lauren, and thank you, all of you, Billy Dan, for working very hard. And as a facilitator, I just start sitting and listening, and I'm just going to let you stand up a little bit. And also, my question to you is, if you have experienced that, stand up if you know. Like, for example, I'm going to say, if you had already filled in the form before the meeting, those who already stand up, if you have filled the form. Lots of good amount of people. Good. Awesome. And I'm not going to look at the ones just sitting down. Those who haven't. These ones, the forms, are going to be very helpful for the forum, for the people who are the people who organized it. There's about 5 questions, I believe, that need to be filled in. If you have done it, please stand up. If you have. Nunavik.
Also, keep standing if you've been there by skidoo. Have you ever gotten onto one of our islands by skidoo? A lot of people use skidoo right there. We always post about and we know about how beautiful the Arctic is.
There's a challenge for you, for those who did not stand up, is to check out some of our islands, but more importantly, to check out our people who are so welcoming, great sense of humor, and you get to know them and you remember them for a very, very long time. And my last One, I love this one. I'm standing up already. Stand if you get along with all your siblings. Stand if you get along with all your siblings. You get along? Now stay standing if you're the one causing the trouble. Oh. If you're causing troubles to your siblings, oh, there's only one standing. Okay, there's a few people there. Hiya, George. I see Sarah as well, too. All right, thank you for your honesty. I was standing up for the first one. I get along with all my siblings. So,
I'll be questioning. I'll ask those questions here and there.
As we move
No.
We're setting up of what you will be doing in the next couple of days. We want you to know the subject better about the Planning Commission, what the huge responsibility the Commission has, and then we're going to work together. So what we're doing this morning is like we got partners in Nunavik Marine Region Planning Commission. There's people involved, there's organizations, governments, and they're going to introduce themselves and just talk about what their role is. So we're getting to know the Planning Commission. So it might be, this is an important part. And after that, tomorrow and the day after, we're going to start giving that responsibility more to you. And that's why we're here. The next person we have invited to talk about the NILCA and the history and the islands and the people and the role that Makivvik Corporation has throughout this whole process. I'm very proud to introduce the next speaker on behalf of Makivvik Corporation, Mylène Larivière. Mylène, tungwasiwit.
Nakomek tunu.
If you want to stand up here, it's up to you. Eh?
Ah, okay.
Yeah, either way. I think if you're here more, you're going to have a better view of how few people are feeling. And you don't have a part of one.
Wait, that's good.
You have one? Okay.
Yes, we do. Okay, and to go, it's this one. Okay, very good, thanks.
And we have about 20 minutes.
Merci. Okay, thank you so much. Nakomek tunu. Thanks for the invitation of the Planning Commission to have a presentation done by Makivvik. Of course, Makivvik is a planning partner as a signatory of the agreement in the first place, as representative of the Nunavik Inuit. Its role is very well and set and defined in the agreement, and this is what we will be presenting in short, in summary, though, because there is always more to say. I'm here on behalf of the Department of Environment, Wildlife and Research. The Vice President, Adami Delil Alakou, is sending his regards. There's a member of his team who are present with us today. So if there is question to be addressed to Makivvik over the course of those days, I'm inviting you to chit-chat during coffee. Coffee will be popular, Qajaq. So to chit-chat with us over the course of the days. In terms of what we'll be covering, there is the Makivvik mandate with regards to the NILCA, and second, the roles specifically regarding the land use process. What we've done so far, though, was to look a bit back in history, because today it's all about where we are in terms of the NILCA, in terms of land use planning. The next days will be where we're going with that exercise and process. But for sure, we may need to look a bit back of what happened and where Nunavik Inuit and how they've been involved to make sure that their claims with the offshore will be considered at one point or another, because we have to remember that it was a long coming process. In 1975, just like it was presented, the offshore component was left aside from the table. It took 96, with the coming into play of a new policy by the federal government, to bring the offshore component into a negotiation process. And therefore, more than 10 years were needed to be able to come to term with the negotiation with that respect. And it is in the format of the NILCA, which is strangely or interestingly defined in the agreement as being the agreement between Nunavik Inuit and Her Majesty Queen and Right of Canada concerning Nunavik Inuit land claims. And that's it. Nunavik Inuit land claims, it's not just for the offshore, it was for the homeland, which is composed of the mainland and the offshore as well. Makivvik is the one, yes, representing Makivvik, Nunavik Inuit, sorry, and in that sense, it is also the representative if there is a right of action with respect to the implementation of the NILCA. So if there is any claim to be done, any contestation in the part of an individuals or individuals collectively, it will be Makivvik that will take the role of contesting that and being the representative. Makivvik is also the collective owner of the Nunavik Inuit land on behalf of Nunavik Inuit. Interestingly enough, when there was the agreement in principle that was close to completion, there were discussions whether or not the ownership should be done on a community-to-community basis. But since the islands are used by more than one community, it was decided at the time to go with a collective ownership and to have Makivvik acting as the owner. It was a bit different than what, let's say, Nunavik Inuit were knew about, because in the GBNQA, it goes by community. There's Inuit title, it's collective owned, but at the local level. Even in the agreement in principle, they were back and forth whether or not there should be a role given to the Inuit land holding corporations. But in the end, it was decided to go back from there, have more collective sense provided for, to make sure that for the next generation, that sense of collective ownership will be kept integral. Makivvik is also acting as the MDO, the Makivvik Designated Organization. This is a role that is devolved de facto to Makivvik, but there could be appointment done by Makivvik for any type of action, roles, and responsibilities. What we need to remember, though, that it's this designation need to make sure that there will be accountable operations and that there will be a democratic representation of Nunavik Inuit. Makivvik does so because of its creation and how it is structured based from the signature of the GBNQA. But there could be other intervener players that could play a role, Avatak, not to name one, with respect to archaeology. So that's a possibility that is in trust and defined in the agreement. Lastly, members of Makivvik are eligible members of the NILCA. They are the beneficiaries, so there is a mirror effect in between the beneficiaries of the GBNQA and beneficiaries of the NILCA, and the listing and the enrollment and the registry is kept by Makivvik for sure. Something of interest is the fact that the agreement, yes, was a long coming, but we have also to acknowledge the fact that there had been some overlaps that needed to be considered before getting into an agreement with the offshore. And Makivvik, on behalf of Nunavik Inuit, was able to conclude that prior to 2006. So we'll get into more details, but that was a great undertaking, and I think we can acknowledge the great role that Johnny Peters played in that part. There's also the objective of certainty that was mentioned by Johnny earlier on in his recording. That's true that the NILCA is going apart or breaking apart from the surrounding clause, and that's true. That's something that was included, unfortunately, in the GBNQA that created a lot of dissent and division, even in communities. So the NILCA, it's a suspension clause. So the rights are there, they're recognized, but for the duration of the NILCA, those rights to be exercised and affirmed are the ones that are defined and provided in the treaty in the NILCA. So Makivvik is there, yes, to support and monitor effective implementation. Just like it was mentioned, Makivvik is a member of the Implementation Committee, which is a process that gives a tools and means and funding to ensure that the NILCA is fully abided to. That's also different from the GBNQA, and that was something that was really seen as being keen in the NILCA, to break from the fact that there were players in their realm working on implementation in silos. There was a need to have a forum to be able to do that in a proper, efficient manner. Makivvik will be there in relation, yes, like we mentioned, to the rights and interests of Nunavik Inuit, but also to make sure that the regimes and systems in place are truly acknowledged and implemented. And that will be true in the Nunavik Marine region. That is the area that is defined within the Nunavik Inuit Settlement Agreement. That is a larger area that includes the overlaps with that respect. And just like we mentioned, there's now a bit more than 80% of the islands that are owned by Nunavik Inuit, since there's the process to have a transfer of the Akpatok that was kept by the Crown, to have that transferred back in full ownership by Nunavik Inuit. The area is determined at a high water mark, and it includes the beds of rivers, the streams, the lakes. That, to be said, is to the fact that Quebec is not a party to the NILCA, so there is some sorts of uncertainty, we could say, whether or not certain areas will be covered by the GBNQA regimes and systems or by the NILCA regime and systems. Makivvik took the stance in the past that both are to be applied whenever that's the case. In the area of equal use and occupancy that you see there, this is where there will be joint ownership with Nunavut Inuit. That is coming from an overlap agreement that was signed in October 1992 with Nunavut Inuit. There is a reciprocity in between Article 40 of the Nunavut Agreement and what you can find in Article 27 of the NILCA. So it had been worked before Inuit to Inuit, and then it was reflected in the comprehensive land claim agreement that is the NILCA. In the Nunavik-Labrador overlap area, same thing. There had been discussion in the context of the Torngat Mountain National Park project. Makivvik even went to court to have its claims in that area recognized and affirmed. It led to an agreement in principle that was signed with Nunatsiavut, and therefore there is a chapter, two chapters, Article 29 and 30, that are dealing with that overlap. Interestingly enough, the agreement that was signed between Makivvik and Nunatsiavut, it includes an area that is in the mainland, but considering that Quebec was not at the table for the NILCA, that portion is not reflected in Article 29 and 30, so that is still something to be considered in the future. In the Cree Inuit offshore overlapping interest area, same thing. There had been an agreement signed with the EUST Crees and Makivvik to have an area defined where there's 3 zones, just like it was mentioned, Zone A, Zone B, Zone C, which triggers different way of implementing the system and process that are in place in between the applicable agreements. It's Article 28 that deals with that. And just something, though, that we sometimes are not mentioning, but there is in Zone C, so the area that is considered to be the Cree zones, there is some islands that have been kept for under the Inuit ownership. So we're talking about Grass Island, Governor Island, Sam Island, and Seal Islands. Now, if we're looking at the role of Makivvik in the land use planning process, we mentioned it, Article 6, that's the deal. This is where planning is forming part of the implementation needs. And I will go in what was the ratification document that was circulated around by Makivvik at the time of the ratification vote for the NILCA. And in terms of land use planning, the summary that Makivvik was giving to Nunavik Inuit during its community tour at the time, it was to say that Inuit are part of the environment and the land cannot be managed without taking their needs into account. I thought that it was a good summary. I will hear more about the objectives here and there, how they are laid out in Article 6, how they're translated then into the consultation document. But I thought that this way of phrasing it and how it was presented to Nunavik Inuit and therefore approved by Nunavik Inuit, I think it was very interesting. The land use plan, to be effective, of course, will be requiring the active participation of both the government and Nunavik Inuit, for which Makivvik acts, as we said, as the representative. And this considering that, again, Makivvik is the collective owner of the Nunavik Inuit land that is in a full ownership. We have to also consider, to your invitation, Tunu, to have people going to the islands by skidoo. That's a very nice invitation, but you will need an entry and access permit from Makivvik to be able to do so, because there is a management regime or system that is put in place from the NILCA, and Makivvik as owner developed its own framework and platform to be able to access and entry, which is always possible by Nunavik Inuit, but not to others, then will be, that's it, put under some very known guidelines, and that require, that's it, having an authorization in the first place.
I'll be selling permits.
Interestingly enough, too, that means that for Nunavik Inuit as owner, they will be able to engage into leases and other forms of authorization. That it's a bit part of the land use that could be possible on the islands. There is still the possibility by Nunavik Inuit to sail the islands, but that is very firmly and strictly put in place or defined in the NILCA. So that calls for a referendum, and the referendum won't be just with the nearby communities, but it will be by all Nunavik Inuit, and the threshold to have that passing is quite high too. So that shows the importance of the collective aspect of the islands throughout, from selection and then to disposing of it or authorizing some activities on it as well. And again, going back to the ratification document, when we were looking at the purposes of Nunavik Inuit lands, there is just one paragraph that has been used to present that to Nunavik Inuit and see if they were comfortable and in support of it. And it was the primary purpose of Nunavik Inuit land is to provide Nunavik Inuit with lands that promote economic self-sufficiency in a manner consistent with their social and cultural needs and aspiration. And we truly believe that the land use plan that will be developed by the Planning Commission will be a great tool to achieve just that. Nakomek.
Nakumi Milen. Iluan nila.
We're really part of it. Under the NILCA with the islands, we are the participants, and we are the people, and this is the foundation, and it's very clear now. We have a mandate to make our own decision and to be the decision makers. And so for your reminder, I thank you very much, Milen. Do you have any questions for Milen concerning the islands or the NILCA or concerning the plan use or so forth? and the Salamiva, Witalutuk. Please introduce yourself first as well and who you're representing. Thank you. I'm kind of shy. Yes, it's very clear. Oh, I'm so shy. I can't bring it over there. I'm Salamiva Witalutuk from Qajaq. I'm the manager, and also I am the leader or the manager because of our water, our land, and animals. We don't want them to be misused. I can't see what I wrote. Sorry. In Qajaq and Umiyaq, concerning that, our land is in Qajaq land is in Umiyaq. We want that to be given back. It's in Richmond Gulf because our land is becoming very small. There are many people are now deceased now, and they really wanted to see the land being retributed to be given back. And I want to be alive still when we get that back. But when we get our land back, we want to be the planners too. We want to be the people to be able to use as people in Qajaq and Umiyaq to bring back our land and our land use and the occupancy. It's over there, it's up there we call it Kamingwak, the bootleg island. We really want to bring it back to be retributed to our people before the planning to be included and to work together with Umiyaq because all of them are originally from Qajaq. We really need to find a way to adjust this with the Quebec government. They have to really take part because they're in the way and they're the ones delaying this process. But I think we need to remind them and push them to make those decisions so that we're really a part of this planning process. Thank you. Thank you, Salamiva. It's very clear. And it's been there's been a lot of hardships concerning this. No wonder it's true, and it's been a long time since passing this. So I'm not even going to answer it, but I'm going to pass it on to Milen. I think that Milen will jot it down because Category 1. You're talking about the Category 1. And also in Qajaq, because there's Category 1 and Category 2 lands. And I think that, Milen, you need to bring this up. And maybe if you want to have something to say, a short answer, you have that opportunity as well. Thank you, Tunu. Thank you.
That's the thing. There is an issue in the mainland portion for Qajaq, Umiyaq with their land selection. There is a northern part for Qajaq that is close by Umiyaq, and there had been discussion over many, many years to try to have a reselection that will make more sense for the two communities. In terms of the implication with respect to the NILCA planning, there's the fact that the Richmond Gulf is included within the Nunavik Marine region. So in terms of the superficie, it has been calculated as the total superficie that is included into the Nunavik Marine region. But at the same time, it has been selected as Category 2 land for Umiyaq. So there is those two treaty, just like I mentioned. So there should be, yes, discussion within the two table with respect to that long-standing issue, Salamiva. So I'm taking note, good note of that, Nakoramik, for the reminder.
Amalo atingi toktono hausa hatalangat tukisinatok.
And yes, concerning the planning, the marine region, but there's also many, Salamia, that you mentioned it, because a lot of these land use or marine use, there's also shared, they're also under shared agreements. And if it's not, it seems to another one, we don't want to put it just aside. But if you have any questions, we'll always find the right person to answer it to you. And if we cannot answer it, we will be writing it to that so that we can direct you to the right people, because the rights and the agreements, there are several different agreements. So I understand too, Salamiva, concerning the plan use, marine region, it's as part of it. If there are issues, there's going to be challenges with the people of Qajaq Robinson with their use. Billy Palliser, let's see where you're from first. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Nakumek Billy Palliser, Angawak President. You mentioned a bit about the Crown's land where Akpatuk will be transferred. I'm wondering, there's also an island subject to Crown's land in the Hudson Bay area, the Ottawa Islands. What's the case for that island? Thank you.
And I will also add Taylor and Gillis Islands as well too, while we're on subject on curiosity about Ottawa, but there's also the Taylor and Gillis Islands that supposedly belong to Americans, so I'm going to throw that in there too, Milen.
What a nice mix. It's okay now? Wait. That's true. There, in the 20%, there is ongoing discussion to have a transfer done, but that's for the portion of Akpatok that was contaminated and that was to be cleaned up. And the process to be able to do that was clearly laid out in the NILCA. So it's plain and simple, it's implementation. But that's true that there's other pouches of Crown land here and there. Some are privately owned, others were kept because of wildlife considerations or contamination considerations as well. And we're not even talking about qulliq here. That is a big of a concern for Makivvik to have that back to Nunavik Inuit at one point or another. So that's it. There is right now a process regarding what had been put into the NILCA regarding transfer. Any other potential transfer, we are in new terrain, and that will mean involving the signatories to have a discussion on these, and just confirming that there's no pending discussion regarding other areas except for Akpatok.
Okay, so Nunavut is in the process of devolution all Crown's land. So where does that stand in? Is it in, because it's in the NMR?
Yeah, Nakomek Billy. Not being too political here, but Makivvik made representation with respect to the devolution that anything that is within the NMR, there shouldn't be a devolution to the Nunavut government. We have to remember that the devolution is not a transfer. It's just a mandate given to the Nunavut government to be in charge of the management of the areas that are concerned. So that's the thing. There is an integrity of the Nunavik Marine region that is considered by Makivvik as being very important. So we're not talking about transfer per se, although for Akvillit, this has been mentioned specifically for the Ottawa Island, but that's it. It's an ongoing file, if I may say, and that was triggered, you're right, by the devolution agreement signed between the Government of Canada and the Nunavut government.
Pili Palliser, million una makipikot, pehoreleringa. Tamat sumunga hikit talaga ng no upalo ni nunalari ng no nunalisik kita pengit tamak kuninga akaran hat sinikailaw to tukisiga so makito Inuit piyu no tingi hanuito mga ta inunin nunaliniluak patangin na sungot sunikat nunamiluti umaktikunin hawi mahatsa hakaswak suni pinaswasuma tamanin nga napak sumakayat sa siyok taman na pangnay ng
and where we come from, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you? Yeah, people can hear me. Okay, maybe you need to change your. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. She couldn't hear with your headset. Thank you. Nakomik Milan La Rivière, merci. Thank you. And the third, I'm going to welcome a speaker, the next speaker, concerning the NILCA and also the planning. Let's welcome Natalia D'Souza with the Nunavut government, the represented government of Nunavut. Natalie D'Souza Tungasutitaule.
Yes, come on in. Yeah, that's, we only have 10 minutes left. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
We're running a bit behind. We'll give Natalie, her presentation will be 30 minutes long, so we'll give her the opportunity after our lunch break. So you'll know which one Natalie is during our lunch break. She's representing the government of Nunavut. She'll doing her presentation after. So we'll also get ready to. Oh, sorry. There'll be a prize for whoever answers me first. If you think you can answer my question, I'll ask you to raise your hand and then approach one of the microphones. So I have different questions and various questions that we'll use to. You're used to. I mean, you can win a prize when you answer it properly. So regarding Millian's presentation, my question.
And there's prizes allocated to it. So, una apaksote kasi yaka intito hakalo nalia hikita angin po hatawa itarayaw na haksawilo.
Which one of the bigger islands that is in the Ungava
cliffs. So raise your hand if you want to answer it. Okay, go ahead. First, if you, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to get you to warm the microphone. You're not going to hide behind your circle of friends or on the circle table. Please say your name.
Mark Basterfield with the Nunavik Marine Region Wildlife Board. Akpatuk.
Akpatuk Island. Congratulations. Some of these questions are very, very simple. And you're going to be like, yes, I want to win a prize, but you have to come up to the microphones You got to get used to that. I know you have a lot of questions, comments, things that you want to share. Sometimes we get really shy coming to the microphones, but this moment is so important that we got to bribe you to come to those microphones. So thank you. I think you won the first trivia questions. Janelle is right there in the back. She'll guide you to what are the prizes there. I want you to get up and go get your prize right away so that you can show off what you just got. So that will bribe, maybe, I think with this activity, we're going to get about 60% of the people who would normally go up to a microphone to say, find the courage. It's like, yeah, okay, I can do this. I got this. And I know it's not easy to come up to the podium, to go to the microphone and ask questions. Even for me, this morning before we started, I was shaking. I didn't even eat breakfast because I was so shy and nervous. I was so nervous. So, Sarah, what did you get? Earrings. Oh, beaded earrings. See? That's the kind of prizes you can get. And you can look at them there. They're nice and they're simple. Some of them are very cute. And I think you got the best prize for finding the courage to come up to the microphone. Maybe you didn't really want to. Nakumik? I have another question. Here's another trivia. Tatsuma Nunavik makpilarineop iloani. So know what? In the NMR boundary includes parts of 3 major bodies of salt water. Can you name all of them? Salamiva, abunga. Yeah, if Salamiva does not get it, you'll be second on the microphone. Tako imakpit, pingaswit, nalsuno what?
Hudson Bay, Strait, and Anga. You forgot James Bay.
Salamiva, tawangat aichit, salahoti, kiyokhanakpat, nalotisutik.
So, yes. You can get your prize. You might be able to purchase his earrings for $20.
Because I've heard of it only. Sunago salamiva. Wah, hilalawaping mo. That is.
She got a stuffed beluga.
A lot of amazing stories about Apatuk, but there's a fun fact that I really want to share that was just given to me. It has, the cliffs are 250 meters high, or 820 feet. I mean, if you want to compare, if you want to get a comparison, that's halfway up to the CN Tower in Toronto. We've all seen the CN Tower. Halfway, that's the kind of cliffs you will see at Apatuk Island, which is crazy, or 60 floors. If you ever see a building that has 60 floors, Apatuk Island is that high. So the cliffs on one end. Walrus are important. Ang malo sunay ko piroktuit. Apatun piyo waktu sumiyit.
There's also mountain sorrel that we eat. They're traditional plants, food. You can find mountain sorrel. It's now lunch hour. Thank you. I think I have an update to provide. Or not charity. That's
okay. Charity Town, she'll be right there in the front. Please, following people, go see Charity. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I think it's going to be a nice practice for some people to get off their chairs and start becoming more comfortable. James Bobish, Jenny Knopp, Susan Lofthouse, Gabe Partington, Cassie Patluk, Amalojani Kasadluak. Atatseo, I will hurry. Oh, so lunchtime. Go see Charity. During lunchtime, please go see charity. If you don't go see charity, I'm going to post it on Facebook, just so you know, with your pictures.
Thank you. Our morning session has ended. We'll commence again at 1:30. Come back at 1:30 after lunch. So there'll be different presenters this after. So if you can come back before 1:30, we'll begin again at 1:30.